Herodotus. I bet you've heard the name, and you've definitely heard the title, the father of history. I mean, what a title, right? It sounds so official, so final. But what did he actually do to earn a nickname like that?
Because, when we really dig into who this guy was, it gets complicated. He wasn't just some stuffy writer. He was part investigator, part globe-trotting storyteller, and, well, part collector of some really weird tales. So that's what we're going to get into today. What does it truly mean to be the father of history?
All right, to even begin to answer that, we've got to go back in time. We need to understand the world Herodotus was living in, which was a world where history as we know it just didn't exist.
So, before Herodotus showed up in the 5th century BCE, how did people talk about the past? Well, it was mostly through epic poems. Think of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. You had gods, monsters, legendary heroes, amazing stories for sure, but not exactly a factual record of what went down. The past was something you told around a campfire, not something you researched in a library.
And this is where Herodotus completely flips the script. He takes this Greek word, historia, and at the time it just meant to ask questions or to investigate, and he makes it his whole philosophy. See, for him, the past wasn't some bedtime story that was already written. No, it was a giant mystery, a puzzle waiting to be solved. He basically invented the idea of history as an investigation.
And here's the cool part. He didn't do this from some cozy study. Oh no. To get his answers, Herodotus hit the road. He became a traveler, an interviewer, a cultural observer. You could almost call him the world's very first reporter, sending dispatches from the ancient world. So let's get a quick snapshot of his life. He was born around 484 BCE in a place that's now Turkey. And get this, he lived right through the massive, world-changing wars between the Greeks and the Persian Empire. So for him, this wasn't some dusty old topic, this was breaking news. He spent his best years traveling all over, talking to people, gathering stories, and then he put it all together in one massive book. And I mean, look at the places he went. We're talking Egypt, Persia, all the way out to Scythia. The man got around. He was out there on the ground actually talking to people. He was collecting everything, eyewitness stories, local myths, what little official records he could find. He was basically gathering primary sources before anyone even knew what a primary source was.
And this is a really important point. Okay, we call him the father of history because he wrote about the Greco-Persian Wars. But honestly, you could just as easily call him the father of anthropology. Why? Because of his method. He wasn't just obsessed with battles and dates. He was endlessly curious about different cultures, different ways of life. He didn't just ask what happened. He was always asking, but why did it happen?
So, he's got all these notes, all these stories from years of travel. What does he do with it all? Well, he sits down and writes a single, massive work that would literally create a whole new genre of writing. He called it, simply, the Histories. Now, if you just read the summary, you'd think the history is about one thing, that epic showdown between the Greeks and the Persians. And yeah, that's the main event. But really, that war was just a clothesline for Herodotus to hang everything else on. And I mean everything.
This was basically his formula. He'd be telling you about a major battle, and then boom, he'd take a detour for 50 pages to tell you all about Egyptian mummification. He'd talk about kings and politics, then dive deep into geography and local customs. It's this incredible, sprawling view of the entire ancient world, all connected. And his scope was just mind-blowing for the time. For instance, he gave the Greek world some of its very first written descriptions of India, its people, its unbelievable wealth, even its soldiers who fought in the Persian army. I mean, this is amazing stuff. And it's right here that things start to get both really interesting and a little weird.
See, here's the thing about Herodotus. As much as he was a pioneering investigator, he was also an absolutely masterful storyteller. And the line between the hard facts and a good story, it gets pretty blurry. And I mean giant gold-digging ants. Yes, you heard me correctly. In his section on India, Herodotus tells this story about giant, furry ants, he says they're bigger than foxes, that dig up gold dust. This is probably his most famous and, let's be honest, most ridiculed story. So what's the deal? Was he totally making it up? Did he misunderstand a story about, say, a marmot? Was it just a great tall tale he heard from a merchant? We honestly have no idea.
In this one story about the ants, perfectly sums up the whole problem with Herodotus.
On the one hand, you have this revolutionary investigator. He's collecting oral histories, he's pointing out when different sources tell him different things. He even sometimes says, hey, I'm not sure I believe this myself. But then, on the other hand, he'll just drop in a story about giant gold-digging ants like it's no big deal. It's no wonder that later historians, especially this guy Thucydides, basically called him out for being more of a fiction writer than a historian.
So, okay, we've got a guy who's part serious journalist and part, well, teller of unbelievable tales. So why? Why do we still call him the father of history? What's the final verdict?
Because he's the connection. He's the turning point. Think about it like this. Before Herodotus, our understanding of the past was all myth and legend. After Herodotus, we're on the road to modern, fact-based history. He is the bridge between those two worlds. He was that first, messy, but absolutely essential step away from legend and toward investigation.
So, in the end, did he earn that title? Absolutely. Not because he got every fact right. He definitely didn't. He earned it because he was the first person to say, hey, the past isn't just a story we tell. It's a place we need to go and explore. He's the one who taught us that history isn't just a noun. It's a verb. It's something you do.
I mean, think about it. Without him, huge chunks of knowledge about ancient civilizations would just be gone. He laid the groundwork that basically every Western historian for the next 2,500 years has built on. So yeah, his work is full of flaws, but it's still one of the most important windows we have into that ancient world.
And that leaves us with one last kind of big question, right? This guy, the founder of history, was wrestling with fake news, misinformation, and trying to figure out who to believe 2,500 years ago. So if he struggled with it back then, it really makes you think, in our world today where we're drowning in information, how do we figure out which stories are true?